All right, we're live here, seventh inning stretch here with you on a Thursday night. We're here to preview Dodgers versus Blue Jays World Series. We've been with you all season long. We'll get into how we got here, favorite parts of the world, favorite part of the World Series matchup, some of the key players that are going to be in a big part of it. What does it mean for both franchises? Let's go. Friday night, World Series is here. Seventh inning stretch starts. And welcome to Seventh Inning Stretch. I'm Darren Breyer, your host here. We have an interesting World Series. These teams go back to 2023 with the whole Ohtani thing. Was he going to the Blue Jays? Everybody thought that. We'll kind of get into how they got here as well. But, man, initially, just thanks to everybody that tuned in last Seventh Inning Stretch after the Dodgers clinched. One of our biggest shows yet here on the network. So appreciate you guys tuning in here. I'll be with you. The goal is after every World Series game for instant reaction. So be sure to tune into that tonight. The goal of the show is we'll go quick here. We'll get you through it tonight. I know football's on. I know a lot of you got NBA starting, but this is what it's all about. If you're a hardcore baseball fan, you make it to the World Series here. It doesn't matter. We got the favorite Dodgers versus the Blue Jays. A great World Series ahead for us starting next week. And Canada, are they rejoicing after the Briggs Springer home run? How did we get here? Well, I'll tell you how we got here. Dodgers swept the Brewers, as we know. Springer gave the Blue Jays the lead. What a shot.
High fly ball, left field, Arozarena watches it go!
That's how we got here. The Mariners, Mr. Wu, if you're a Mariners fan, I'm sorry. That's as tough as it gets right there with that. The Blue Jays, though, advance on Springer's home run, passing the great Bernie Williams there. He ends up an all-time playoff home run record, and the Blue Jays hold the lead on from there. Hoffman was able to get the job done in the ninth. Rodriguez swing out a strike. Come on, man. What are we doing over there? And the Mariners, more heartbreak again for Seattle. But let's focus on the World Series here and what we have here to look to. So, Blue Jays, they get by the Yankees. They get by the Mariners. Then we have the Dodgers. They get by the Reds. They get by the Phillies. They get by the Brewers. And here we have this matchup. Ohtani, was he going to the Blue Jays in 2023? The reports, right? He's on the plane. He's on the plane. No, he does not make it there. So we get this interaction of all blue Canada, United States, Toronto, trying to win their first World Series since 1993. The Dodgers trying to be the first team to repeat since the Yankees in the late 90s, early 2000s there, as they three-peated actually in that one. So, favorite part of this World Series matchup, I was thinking, all right, what are some of the things I like? It's the lineups. I love the matchup of these lineups. Both these teams are really deep. They take really good at bats. Let's start with the Blue Jays. The one things I love about the Blue Jays, I remember telling my buddy JT, who I was watching the game with, I'm like, the Blue Jays are going to fight back here a little bit. They have a tendency to fight back. They have a tendency to be gritty with their at-bats, make pitchers work. And I really appreciate that about Toronto's lineup. And we'll get into the whole starting pitching thing of the Dodgers here, but I just want to start with the Blue Jays and really like how I love the Brewers in terms of that grittiness. You take the Blue Jays to another level because then they have, what's that guy's name? Yeah, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's the superstar, like the real true veteran superstar that puts that lineup all together. When you have gritty at bats, you have the Springer, who's a playoff stud. You got your guys like Guerrero, but you have Kirk, Clement, Varsho, like and Jimenez was awesome in this series. You have these gritty at bats, and they make the pitchers work, and you have the superstars that are able to kind of get to it. Bo Bichette might return. We'll get into that a little bit more as well into the lineup. Sounds like he is going to be on the roster. We'll see where the Blue Jays put him. I guess it would be fourth in the lineup right away, putting him in there. So you have this team on the Blue Jays that's just this gritty at bat. And then it's like, well, we don't know. Springer, just as we saw with the home run. You have a veteran guy, like an established playoff performer. Established. So, man, what a great luxury they have. And then you look at the Dodgers, and obviously everybody's like, well, they should be back. Oh, Dave Roberts, like, we're ruining baseball. I get all of it. But you got your guys, Ohtani, your Betts, your Freemans, and then you have your Hernandezes and Smiths, your veteran guys, along with Muncy to go along. Like just these core guys that are tough ABs that are really going to make these pitchers work. And so the lineups alone to me really excite me about this matchup. And like I said, I really want to focus on the Blue Jays' ability to grind out at bats. I'm curious in the World Series, will they fold like the Brewers, where they did not grind at bats like they did in the regular season? Are the Blue Jays able to sustain that? I think that's going to be a big part of this World Series. And then the Dodgers starting pitching, right? I mean, it was elite. Literally gave up 1 run a game against the Brewers. Snell was awesome. He's going to go game 1 versus Savage. That's going to be your game 1 matchup. Can the Dodgers starting pitching deliver what it has before? Because their bullpen is not the same. It is not as dominant as it was last year, where they relied on 60% of their innings to be pitched by the bullpen. Dave Roberts is going to ask a lot more out of Snell. He's going to ask a lot more out of Yamamoto. So we'll see if the Blue Jays can make them work, foul off some pitches, make them go deep into the games. That's going to be a really big part of this matchup. And to me, it's one of my favorite parts of this matchup is that Dodgers starting pitching versus this Blue Jays lineup. And I'm curious what the Bichette factor is in this series. And Blue Jay fans, if you're out there listening, I'd be curious to get that thought of it too. What I mean by it is this: like, he obviously missed the first few series. You would obviously want him in there, but are you concerned at all about Bichette just kind of coming right into the World Series? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not trying to it's a hot take or anything. I just, over time watching baseball, sometimes it might take him a game or two, and that's a risk the Blue Jays would be willing to take. I get it, but my concern is they're going to be too far behind in that regard. And the Blue Jays, you cannot lose the first 2 games like you did last series to the Mariners. Highly doubt you're going to be able to make that comeback again. And then the Dodgers playing with the utmost confidence in this series. Utmost confidence. You have a team that's on the verge of repeating. They basically have just cold clocked everybody in the playoffs so far, looking dominant. The pitching was unbelievable last NLCS. So when you have that, I got to think that their confidence is at an extreme high. That's something else I'm looking forward to seeing, how those things balance out. And of course, always what I'll say is defense. I know it's such a no, obviously it is a thing, but it always plays a big part in such a short series here as well. Key players I wanted to kind of get into as well, headed into this World Series. I think Kirk's going to be a big part for the Blue Jays, the catcher. I think he's, for their sake, how he's going to be defensively, blocking balls, throwing out runners, and then his batting 5th. He's had a great season. Kind of, usually catchers kind of do, unless you're Cal Raleigh. You kind of fall off at the end of the year. He's had some big hits, though. He had that big hit in game 162, obviously, the big homers there. So I think he's going to be a key player. Honestly, one of the guys for me that I've been impressed with the whole season since he's come up with the Blue Jays has been Ernie Clement. And I'm curious to see if Ernie can continue to play the way he has and gritty at bats. We saw that in game 7 against the Mariners. So to me, he's a key player. And that's the Hernandez brothers for the Dodgers. I mean, Teoscar just seems to always perform in a playoff setting. And then if we're talking about performing in a playoff setting, of course, Kiki Hernandez is always performing in a playoff setting. So to me, those are, without being your superstars, your Guerreros, your Otanis, and obviously your Betts. These are the guys that I'm kind of looking at where I'm like, okay, are they going to be able to get the big hits because these guys are going to be on? Are they going to be able to take key walks when they need to take walks? Moving runners over when they need to move runners over. So again, Kirk and Clement for the Blue Jays to me are some of the key players I'm looking for in Hernandez. And Kiki Hernandez for the Dodgers to me are key World Series on the offensive end. On the pitching staff-wise, for me, the big guy is going to be Yamamoto. And you might say, well, you could have picked anybody here. It's Yamamoto. I'm curious to see how he does. He was so good in game 2 against the Brewers. I mean, he was awesome in game 2. Curious to see how he bounces, how he does again on a road start again versus the Blue Jays, different type of atmosphere against the lineup he does not seen very often. I'm very curious to see how he does in that one pitching wise. And then for the Blue Jays, I want to say he's Savage, but I feel like he's not. For me, it's Hoffman. He did a good job closing out against the Mariners. He has great stuff. There's no doubt that 95 to 96 mile per hour fastball is not 101 though. I'm curious to see how he does. They're going to need him to be really good in this series to beat the Dodgers, especially in late game situations, especially if they're on the road. Hoffman is going to have to close the deal. So I'm very interested to see how he does, how he steps up in any type of big moments. So those are some things I'm looking for on the pitching side in terms of key players. Things I'm looking forward to. Bo has returned. Bo is back. He could give the Blue Jays, as much as I said I'm nervous about it, right? There's a flip side to it. And he could give them a spark on the other, and that takes them over the top. It's like, all right, now we got this other superstar who's going to now make a ton of even more money in free agency next year as well. So, yeah, I think Bo's going to be that for me as well. I talked about Hoffman, Jays versus Dodgers bullpen. That's going to be a big thing. You know, you have Varland, you have Dominguez, you have Little. Are they going to be able to stop out? Lauer has been okay for them as well in the series versus your Trinans of the world. You know, how are those guys? How are they going to be able to step? Vesia's not with the Dodgers to start right as of right now. How do the Dodgers use their pair on Sasaki? Does he stay consistent in the bullpen as well? To me, that's a big matchup as well. And then the other thing, I think probably the biggest storyline, especially if you're a Blue Jays fan, and if you're a Dodgers fan, you're thinking, this is the key to the whole thing. The key to the whole thing. Are you shutting down Vladdy? As I was a kid, right, you have Vladimir Guerrero Sr. tormenting my A's as an Angels guy. Obviously, with the Expos, he was very dominant as well. But Vladdy has been absolutely on fire. Has one of the best playoffs going ever. And the fact that he's back in it, you know what I mean? Like, and he's on fire, makes you want to think that, here we go again, that this guy's going to be able to carry them to a World Series. And I believe there's a chance that he can. So those are the big things for me. Before I get into my predictions and all that, I wanted to just a little reminder here of last time the Blue Jays were here, game 6. Everybody knows the play, but here's going to be my flashback video of the week.
What a ride! The Cardinals are world champs in 2011.
No Cardinals, Variety Sports Network. Sorry to make it through to you. Well, everybody knows what I'm showing with Toronto. Here, everybody knows. First, Mitch, Joe Carter up, Ricky Henderson on second base. Here we go.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down to the field line. Way back in. Joe Carter with a 3-run homer. The winners and still world champions, the Toronto Blue Jays.
I mean, honestly, one of the greatest home runs of all time. Toronto has that for sure, no doubt. Locked up when you got Joseph Carter hitting bombs like that. There's no doubt about. Got a comment here. The problem with the Jays starting rotation, the Dodgers destroy righties. You're totally right about that, and that's going to be a big issue when you have your Freemans and you have your Otanis and it's your lefties. But you're right. You even have guys like Will Smith and Hernandez. They do the same thing. I mean, that's the thing with the Dodgers lineup. It doesn't stop. Mookie Betts hits those guys. If Edmonds as a playoff player, totally right. Totally right in that regard. I would throw, I don't know if you're Dodger fans, you just might be a perspective, just a regular fan, kind of like me, rooting for both teams, but have been ingrained in the sport. I would ask you back, do you worry at all about the Dodgers pitching against the Blue Jays hitting and their resiliency, or do you feel like the starting pitching is too dominant on that side? So I'd throw that back to you on that side of it. But you are right with Scherzer on the mound. You're Savage. They do not have Gosman. They do not have the lefties to get the job done. Totally right about that. We got Mark here, out there. So that to me is an interesting comment, Mark, and I actually appreciate you tuning in and bringing that comment to the table, because you are right. They absolutely destroy righties. Again, on my end, I'm curious to see how the Blue Jays can they grind out at bats like they have done all season. They've done in the playoffs to teams. Dodgers pitching might say we're too much, and then you're not going to be able to do that. So I do think that could be a factor. Absolutely, no doubt. And then will we see Ohtani again? Can he up himself? Game 4, we're assuming where he's all going to start there. That would be in Los Angeles. Obviously, coming off the magical game there. We'll see what he's able to do this next time out with pitching, and obviously trying to hit 4 bombs. That what he's going for, 4 home runs in the series. Prediction time. So my heart says, of course, all right, I'd love to see the Blue Jays beat the Dodgers, obviously, just from the standpoint of I really like where the Blue Jays have come from. I love the fact that they have chosen as an organization to spend money when a lot of teams, it felt like, were not over the offseason. You had your big guys that were signed, but it just felt like a lot of teams over the last couple of years have kind of said, let's wait. And when the Blue Jays have been more aggressive, and they haven't always won out in that situation, but I do like the fact that they've been aggressive there. So part of me wants the Blue Jays to win for that reason. I think the Dodgers right now are too deep, and I feel like they have a really good spot with where they get to in their bullpen. I don't love the bullpen, but I like how they're getting there with it. So I'm going to go Dodgers. I'm going to go Dodgers in 6. I think Dodgers are able to win it in Toronto there. I think the Blue Jays get a 1 in Toronto. They get 1 in LA. But let me know where you think. Blue Jays win. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm a dummy, because a part of me wants I want you to convince me that I might be a dummy about this whole thing. That the Blue Jays are going to win it. But I do think the Dodgers, deep down, the talent, as we know, has always been there. But the way they're playing right now going into this World Series, that has me to be the favorite. I did see, though, right, like out of all the teams that have had as much day rest as or as much time off as the Dodgers have, for a team that swept, and the other team went to Game 7. I think it was out of 5 World Series. It could be 6, I believe. I think it was 6 World Series. That the team that went to Game 7 has won 5 out of the 6 World Series. Incredible stat along the way there. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I'm going to be here with you after games here. You got to be rooting for the Blue Jays, Sean. Got to be rooting for them, right? You got it. I mean, America, come on. We got to be rooting. Even in Canada, it doesn't matter if it's Canada or that. It's the Dodgers, right? We're all. And I think the Blue Jays, my heart wants to be with them. No doubt about it there, Sean. I do want the Blue Jays to well, I'm just curious to see that matchup within the game. Can the Blue Jays, can they really work that pitching enough? Can they really grind them out to get there? So appreciate you tuning in here, Sean, to the show here. I'll be with you guys, like I said, after Game 1 tomorrow night, breaking down the game. I'll probably be in about 25 minutes after, maybe 30 minutes after, a little bit. Kind of let things settle down there, and we'll start talking some Blue Jays Dodgers Game 1 here, and it's at Toronto. We know we got the matchup there of Snell versus Savage. He hasn't been as electric after his first start there versus the Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays, versus the Yankees. So the Blue Jays are obviously looking for a lot out of him tomorrow in his first start. And they've thrown a lot on this rookie, thrown a lot on this guy here. And he came up big Game 6. We'll see what happens in Game 1 tomorrow night. So big World Series here ahead of us. I'll be with you the rest of the way home here as we finish out the baseball season. We've been with you since the World Series ended, basically. Since December 1st, we've been doing this podcast. So I really appreciate anybody tuning in. Appreciate you, Mark, tuning in, commenting in there, giving me the insight there on that as well with the pitching. And Sean, appreciate you chiming in as well. Appreciate anybody that's been listening. We got 1.3K on the last show. So it doesn't happen without you guys checking in, listening. So I know we got a lot of fans out there in Toronto. Obviously, LA is a big market. So be sure to tune in here, Variety Sports Network. We might not be as big as other guys, but I'll be here with you trying to give my insight on it. And your comments are always welcome. I'll always read them on the air. So appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Appreciate the love that you guys shown lately. We'll see you tomorrow night. Game 1, Dodgers at Toronto. Peace.